Before history became names and timelines, revelation spoke first. In the Torah, Lot is introduced as the nephew of Abram, a man who walked with him, left his homeland with him, and shared the uncertainty of divine migration. The book of Genesis presents Lot as a witness to faith in motion, a man shaped by proximity to prophecy, yet tested by the cities he chose to live among. In the Bible, Lot appears as a righteous soul living in a morally corrupted society. The New Testament later refers to him as a man distressed by the depraved conduct of the lawless, someone whose heart never fully accepted the sins surrounding him. In the Quran, Lot is far more than a supporting character. He is a Nabi of Allah, sent to a people unlike any before them, tasked with delivering a warning humanity had never heard. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes his struggle, his loneliness, and his unwavering stand even when belief seemed hopeless. 3 books, 1 man, 1 mission, and yet, his story is often reduced to the destruction of a city when in reality, Lot was first a believer, then a migrant, and only later a warner. Today, we begin at the beginning. Before we step into this ancient journey, take a quiet second. If stories of prophets, lost civilizations, and divine warnings matter to you, if you believe history still speaks, then stay with us. Subscribe, stay curious, and walk this road with Son of Adam. This story isn't meant to be rushed. A child born in the shadow of idolatry, Lot was born into a world drowning in false gods. The land of Ur, deep within Mesopotamia, was not merely a city, it was a civilization devoted to idols, stars, and kings who claimed divinity. Power flowed from temples. Faith was measured by obedience to stone. This was the environment in which Lot opened his eyes. He was not born into prophecy. He was born into questioning. His uncle, Ibrahim was already different. While others bowed, Ibrahim observed. While others accepted, Ibrahim challenged. And young Lot watched all of it closely. Some souls are chosen to speak. Others are chosen to listen first. Lot belonged to the second kind. The nephew who watched a prophet rise. Imagine a young man watching his uncle argue with an entire civilization. Abraham shattered idols not only with his hands, but with his words. He challenged priests, kings, even his own father. Lot saw something no one else dared to see: faith that did not bend. The Quran subtly places Lot alongside Ibrahim during these early years, showing us something powerful: belief can be contagious. Lot did not inherit belief. He recognized truth when he saw it. And that recognition came at a cost. Belief that separates you from your own people. To believe in one God in Ur was to declare war on tradition. When Abraham was rejected, threatened, and ultimately forced to leave, Lot did not hesitate. He chose truth over tribe, faith over familiarity. The Quran records this moment quietly, yet it echoes loudly through history. Lot believed in Ibrahim. Not after miracles, not after victory, but while rejection was still fresh. This is where Lot's story truly begins, not as a prophet, but as a believer willing to walk into uncertainty. Hijra, leaving everything you know. Hijra is not just movement. Hijra is sacrifice. Together, Ibrahim and Lot left behind land, safety, and identity. They walked toward the unknown because staying would mean spiritual death. The Quran presents Hijra as a dividing line between comfort and conviction. For Lot this migration shaped him. It prepared his heart for something far heavier than travel, isolation among corruption. He did not know yet that one day, he would stand alone against an entire city. But destiny was already moving. Why this background matters. Many people meet Lot-A-S only at the moment of destruction. But God introduces him before the fire, before the warning, before the angels. Why? Because Lot's strength did not come from sudden courage. It came from years of belief, migration, and moral discipline. A man who walks with a prophet learns how to stand alone. The calm before the test. After Hijrah, paths began to diverge. Abraham A.S. would move on to other lands, other tests, other nations. Lot A.S. would be sent somewhere no prophet before him had ever been sent to confront a sin humanity had never normalized until then. But that mission was still approaching. For now, Lot A.S. was being shaped quietly, patiently by faith, by travel, and by proximity to truth. Every prophet is sent where truth is needed most. But the land assigned to Lot A.S. was unlike anything humanity had witnessed before. After separating from Ibrahim A.S., Lot was guided toward the region later known as Sodom and its surrounding cities, fertile, prosperous, strategically placed along trade routes. On the surface, it was a land of abundance. But beneath prosperity was decay. Not poverty, not ignorance, but deliberate rebellion, a civilization that normalized the unthinkable. The Quran describes the people of Lot with words never used for any nation before them. They did not sin in private. They institutionalized sin. What shocked Lot A.S. was not only their acts but their pride in them. They mocked morality. They challenged nature. They turned shame into identity. This was not accidental corruption. This was intentional defiance. The Bible echoes this atmosphere, describing Sodom as a place where violence, lust, and arrogance had replaced compassion and restraint. Even strangers were unsafe. And yet, God sent one man to stand against all of it. Why Lot A.S. was chosen. Lot A.S. had lived among idolaters before. He had walked away from his own people for truth. He had seen how society collapses when morality dies. Allah did not send him unprepared. A man who leaves everything for faith once can stand alone for faith again. Lot A.S. was not sent because the people deserved mercy. He was sent because Allah is just. Every nation must hear the truth before judgment. The first words of warning. Imagine being Lot A.S. You arrive among a people whose sins are celebrated, not hidden. You speak of modesty, restraint, and divine limits and they laugh. The Quran preserves his voice. He calls them to fear God. He reminds them of dignity. He warns them of consequences. But his words fall on hardened hearts. They respond not with debate but with threats. Mockery is a weapon. The people of Lot did not argue theology. They mocked morality. They said, "Expel him from your city. He wants to be pure." Think about that sentence. Purity had become an insult. Decency had become extremism. When a society reaches the point where good is ridiculed, collapse is no longer approaching, it has already begun. The loneliness of a prophet. Every prophet experiences rejection, but Lot A.S. experienced social suffocation. He was surrounded, isolated, outnumbered. The Quran reveals a heartbreaking reality. Very few believed in him. Some scholars say only his daughters truly followed him. No tribe, no army, no support, only faith. A home surrounded by sin. The cruelty of Lot's test was not only outside, it was inside. His own wife rejected his message. She lived with a prophet yet aligned her loyalty with corruption. The Quran later immortalizes her as an example not of ignorance, but of chosen betrayal. This teaches something terrifying. Proximity to righteousness does not guarantee salvation. Faith is personal. The breaking point. Lut A.S. did not give up. He warned. He pleaded. He reminded. Until one day the final test arrived. Strangers entered the city. And everything accelerated. When angels walked among men, the visitors were not ordinary travelers. They were angels sent by God first to Ibrahim A.S. then to Lut A.S. They came in human form. And the city reacted exactly as Allah knew it would. The Quran describes Lut's heart sinking when he saw them. Not because he feared for himself but because he knew what his people would attempt. This moment exposes Lut's humanity. A prophet afraid, not for his life, but for the dignity of others. A prophet's desperate plea. Lut A.S. stood at his door, trying to protect his guests. He reasoned. He begged. He appealed to conscience. But there was none left. The people were no longer capable of shame. This is the moment where history holds its breath. Because once a society loses the ability to blush, divine patience reaches its limit. The line between mercy and judgment. The angels finally revealed themselves. They told Lut A.S. These people will never believe. This sentence is terrifying. Because it means the test is over. Judgment does not come suddenly, it comes when repentance becomes impossible. A final command. Lut A.S. was given one instruction. Leave at night. Do not look back. Take only those who believe. This was hijrah again but harsher. This time, it meant leaving behind not just land, but people destined for destruction. Why this story still matters. The story of Lut A.S. is not about ruins. It is about how civilizations die morally before they die physically. It is about a believer shaped by hijrah, tested by isolation, and honored by standing firm when no one else would. Some nights decide the fate of entire civilizations. The night Lut A.S. was commanded to leave was not loud. There were no armies. No warnings echoed through the streets. Just silence and divine certainty. The angels spoke calmly, but their words carried finality. This was no longer a call to repentance. This was evacuation before annihilation. Lut A.S. gathered those few who believed. No speeches. No arguments. No hesitation. Faith does not negotiate when Allah commands. Do not look back. A command with meaning. The instruction was precise. Leave at night. Do not turn around. Do not hesitate. Looking back was not about curiosity, it was about attachment. Allah was teaching a lesson as old as humanity itself. You cannot move forward while your heart clings to what God has condemned. The believers walked into darkness, trusting the unseen. Behind them stood cities that had crossed every moral boundary imaginable. The one who stayed behind. Among those who physically left the city, one soul was already left behind. The wife of Lut A.S. The Quran tells us her fate in one of the most chilling ways possible. She was not destroyed because she disbelieved secretly, but because her loyalty remained with the corrupt. She knew the truth. She lived with a prophet. Yet her heart leaned toward the people of sin. And when judgment arrived, no relationship could save her. Not marriage, not proximity, not history. Only faith matters. When the earth itself becomes a weapon, what happened next is described with terrifying clarity in the Quran. The earth was lifted. The cities were overturned. Stones rained from the sky, marked, precise, unavoidable. This was not chaos. This was targeted justice. The Bible describes fire and brimstone falling from heaven. The Quran describes a punishment unlike any before it because the crime was unlike any before it. The land that once flourished became uninhabitable. Even geography obeyed divine command. Morning after judgment, when the sun rose, nothing remained. Trade routes were silent. Homes were erased. Voices were gone. Lut A.S. stood with the believers alive, spared, protected. Not because they were strong. Not because they were many. But because they obeyed. History moved on, but God preserved this story forever. Why Allah repeats the story of Lut A.S. No prophet's story is repeated in the Quran as frequently or as sternly as that of Lut A.S. Why? Because his people represent a pattern, not a moment. A pattern where sin becomes identity, morality becomes mockery, warning becomes oppression, and purity becomes a crime. When these signs appear, history warns us collapse is near. Lut A.S. was not weak. Some misunderstand Lut A.S. as a defeated prophet. But understand this clearly. A prophet is not measured by numbers. He is measured by obedience. Lut A.S. succeeded because he delivered the message fully. He stood alone without compromise. He protected the innocent. He obeyed without hesitation. Allah honored him by saving his name forever while erasing his enemies completely. That is not failure. That is victory defined by heaven. The nephew who became a warning. Lut A.S. began as a believer following his uncle. He ended as a prophet whose story would echo until the end of time. He proves something essential. You do not need to start as a leader to become one. You do not need numbers to be right. You do not need acceptance to be truthful. Sometimes, standing alone is the proof of truth. A mirror for every generation. This story is uncomfortable because it forces self-reflection. Allah does not tell us these stories to entertain us. He tells them to ask us a question. When society mocks what is right, when sin demands celebration, when truth becomes intolerance, where will you stand? With the city, or with the prophet standing at the door? A final friendly word. If this story made you pause even for a moment, then it has done its job. Stories of the prophets are not ancient myths. They are mirrors. If you believe these lessons still matter, if you want more stories told with depth, honesty, and courage, stay connected with Son of Adam. Walk this journey with us. Because history does not repeat itself. Human behavior does.